ready. She's arrived. Hello YouTube friends. What I want to do today is chat to you while I do this little job that I've got to do. I've got a lovely quilt that I'm making for someone, and I'm going to be, today, what I need to do is draw a line, a diagonal line on here, corner to corner, on, now there are 77 times 4, which is 77 times 4. Seeing if you can get to it before I do. Did you get it? 308, is that right? Yeah, of these that I need to do a diagonal line on. So that's what I'm going to do. And I thought I'll do it. I like a repetitive task, you know I do. I thought I'll do this and chat to you guys. Now, don't worry about the cat being on this because everything gets washed before it gets sent out of here. And so there's no way we could get rid of her, is there? No, there isn't. I've got to go and get one thing. Now, Norma, I'm going to do this. So are you going to let me? No, probably not. The quilt block that I'm making is the Flying Goose block. And I've made that before on this channel a couple of times. In fact, I think it was not last Easter, but the Easter before that I did a 6-part series on making the Flying Goose quilt. So what I'll do is I'll leave an iCard up here, just above Norma's head, to that little series. And then I did another one that I don't think I did so much as a tutorial. I just did it like I'm doing this one, kind of like in the background. So the person who's getting this quilt, you're going to have a little bit of Norma in there as well. You know that, don't you? Now then, Norma, let me do this because I want to do this and chat with you guys. It's not going to work, is it? It's just not going to work. So this is just a sew line. I'm not, as I did that really big in detail 6-part series, which is exactly the same as what I'm doing here. I'm not inclined to offer this as a tutorial again. And you know, many of you know what I'm doing anyway. I'm doing the Flying Goose quilt block that yields 4 units from one little set of sewing. So on the board behind me here, I've got all the goose colours. So between us we decided that the geese should be red and pink and orange and those colours, and that the sky should be greens and blues, and there's a little bit of purple edging in here because I had some of the fabric provided, thank you, and I bought the other half of the fabric. It all arrived yesterday, which is why I'm doing this now, because I cut all the pieces yesterday. Quite a few purples in there, but they blend in very well, I think, with the blues and the greens. They're all, I think I'd say they're all Kaffe Fassett fabrics, all of them. And so, you know, you can trust them because they're all going to blend together because they're all from that one fantastic designer. And so I think this is going to look nice with quite a contrasted blue sky and pink and red geese. I think it's going to look fantastic. Norma, I can't do this with you butting my hand every time I draw a line. So I'm going to put that chair there, and I'm going to invite you subliminally to go and occupy that chair, please. It's not going to happen, is it? So here we are on another Sunday, and I'm enjoying turning the camera on a Sunday to have a chat with you guys. It's been filthy weather. I mean, just rain, which I don't enjoy because it means, you know what that means, don't you? Mud. So I've had, it's not been brilliant to be outdoors. And that'll be a while before I get out into the garden, I guess. But I have got big plans for the garden this year. I'm hoping to have a much better garden than last year, where I just was, there was too much going on, and I took my eye off the ball and I didn't get out to the garden much at all. So now I have 2 drinks to choose from here. This one is, can you see the yellow in there? This one is turmeric, however you pronounce it, and ginger and coconut milk. And it's like creamy and delicious and absolutely gorgeous. This one is just hot water with lemon. And so I'm just going to alternate between these two, because although I'm not making a big song and dance about this, but usually in January I do a little bit more healthy eating and cut out coffee and wheat and dairy, those 3 things, and keep to a really quite a kind of like a much more healthy diet, lots more green juices, lots more water, which is what this is all about. And so whenever I do that, and I usually do it for the whole of January or the whole of February, one of those 2 months. For this year, I don't know why, I just decided I would choose January to do it. And I usually feel really, really ropey to start with, which makes me realise just the impact those foods have on me, especially coffee, but wheat as well. Wheat's, my daughter-in-law, Anna, she describes it as like a blanket of, it's like an oppressive kind of feeling of sapping your energy. And it definitely does work like that for me. What did she say one time? I asked her, she turned up at breakfast for something. Would you like a croissant? I was just about to have my breakfast. I've got a spare croissant. She said, no, if I had a croissant, I'd just have to have a sleep afterwards. You see that direct correlation between your energy and consuming wheat. Now, this is definitely, it's not a channel for preaching at you about what you should do or anything ever. I would never do that. I like to do what I do, and sometimes I'll share it with you. And mostly I won't. And it's definitely not telling you, what you should be doing. But I'm enjoying it. Now that I've got over that sort of withdrawal from coffee, that always takes a good week or so of headaches, and just makes you realise, doesn't it, the impact coffee has on you. The coffee also has a fabulous impact. It's the opposite of that is that it gives me loads of energy, but it's pretend energy, isn't it? Maybe, I don't know. So anyway, this is personally what I'm doing. I'm not suggesting anyone else needs to do this, but it's what I enjoy. So today then it's this lovely coconut milk latte with the turmeric and the ginger. And then over on the stove there, I've got some oats cooking with a bit of coconut milk. So I'll go and get those in a minute because they're not quite cooked yet. I've put a handful of my frozen raspberries. Last year, when the raspberries were really abundant, because although I said I didn't do anything in the garden was all right. I got potatoes and carrots, and I got all sorts of stuff. I just didn't garden it terribly well, and it did go a little bit to rack and ruin. But I did get my raspberry bushes were abundant, and so the ones I didn't want to eat, I was freezing them in a single layer in the freezer, and then put them in a bag, and then every morning I take out 5 or 6 and put them in my porridge, and it's absolutely delicious, and a little bit reminder about what might be coming later in the year. So this is a slow, tedious job, guys, but I like slow, tedious jobs, because the next job after this, when I've done all this whole table full of little squares, will be to match them up with this fabric on the board here, so that I get a nice match and a good distribution of colours going on. Yeah. So the garden then, just before Christmas, I went to stay with my dad for a bit while my brother was away. And because John, my son, would have been coming to feed the cats while I was away, and the hens, I thought I'll just make it easier for him to feed the hens. So I opened the gate from the hen shed into the garden because I thought there's nothing much going on in the garden. And so when I got back, of course, Eileen had completely eaten all my purple Sprite and broccoli and kale and cabbages, all of them. Of course she would. You know, I'm not going to say, you can come in the garden, Eileen, but please can you leave this bed alone? Well, she didn't, did she? So that's all right. That's okay. So once we get the garden going again, I'm going to make sure I mend the hen shed fence. And so I can never, ever stop Clara getting out, ever. So I still got her. I still don't know what I'm going to do about that. But I'll try and get everybody back behind the fence again. And then we'll concentrate on getting the garden sorted. But not for ages. It's ages off being time for gardening yet. Just time for thinking about it, which is nice. So what else can I tell you about? What else have I been doing? I've been backwards and forwards to the printers. I really enjoy working with the printers, and they are such friendly people because, you know, you take your stuff in there to be printed and you go to collect it and it would just be like, oh, there's your box. But not with my guys. They like to have an opinion about what I've done and oh, this latest thing that I had printed. They were, oh, this is really nice. This is just such a lovely thing. Look at this, look at this. And they were just so complimentary about what we'd printed, which I am thrilled about because this is a new experiment for me that I'm going to just talk to you about a little bit now. Because if you support me over on Patreon, thank you, and explain a little bit about what's going on over there. Because Patreon, you'll understand about Patreon. It's a subscription thing. You voluntarily sign up for different levels of different tiers, and there are different rewards for each of those tiers. And so last year they were all like that, and in the new year, working together with Girl Rita and with Martha and Adam, who's my son's wife and my daughter and her partner, all those people, working with them to make the rewards for some of the tiers a print-based thing. Because if you nip over the shop, I like writing. I really do. And one of the things I want to do in 2020 is get back to a little bit more writing and maybe write. I've got some ideas for some more of the little books that I write. The very first one, I'm not working, am I? Get back to work, Kate. The very first little book that I had printed with my printers was all about that cat who's gone over to the food now, guys. You'll be interested to hear. I've put some lovely food out for them all this morning, and she's gone to help herself to that. So the first book I wrote was all about her story. Kate's Cat Norma, it's called. And yeah, if those of you who've got that, you'll know that she's actually a pretty remarkable cat. I mean, she's amazing. She's an amazing cat. And, you know, she forgave me. Let's just say, I'll just say that. I'll say no more. She forgave me. And now is, you know, my absolute shadow, my best friend. She's wonderful. So then that was the first little book I wrote, and then I enjoyed that one, printed that one, and people liked it. So I had a load of other little stories that I wanted to write about, so I did those. But then I've got some more now. And I was thinking that maybe for the end of 2020, by the time I've got, you know, that process is quite long of writing them and proofing them and printing them and so on. I'll have maybe another set of little books to offer. And so that's good. So the idea of having print-based rewards over on Patreon was so that I could spend time doing some of the other things I want to do, one of which is writing, more writing. Now, so naturally, if it's a print-based reward, there has to have been some writing in it. So I've done 2 rewards that my kids are helping me to produce. And that's been the game changer, really, because they've got skills that I simply haven't got. I simply haven't got the skills of laying out text so that it looks really great using these clever pieces of software that allow you to do that. Now, my daughter-in-law, Rita, is very, very good at that. I know she lives in Canada, but we know we can do all of this by email and FaceTime. And so for that reward then, I'll show you, because we've produced the January one and I couldn't be more proud of it. Each month is going to be colour themed, and I can now tell you that this month's theme is indigo. And so the insides of this book are all to do with things I'm not going to show you because there are some people who haven't quite received them maybe, but they've been in the post now for a few days and I think people are starting to receive them. And so I'll tell you about some of the features though. There'll be a cat featured every time, and I know I haven't got 12 cats, but don't worry, we're coming up with some other things to do for the months with the cats. Each month, I'm going to introduce you to one of my supremely clever friends who's very creative in a section called Meet Kate's Mates. And this month, it's somebody who works with indigo and is really rather amazing. And so, yeah, there's some glimpses into what I do here. And I think the people who receive this, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. They're really enjoying it. So that's one of the rewards, is a print-based reward. The other one is also a print-based one, and this is replaces the handmade postcard. Last year I made postcards for people, and sometimes I would show you here on the channel how I produced these postcards and found the quotes and wrote the card out, and they were all to do with moons. They were themed with the moons. So that became unsustainable as I found that I was spending one whole week just making postcards. Not 9 to 5, but I was, a bit of every day for that last week of the month was always to do with the cards. So now we've, Martha and her partner Adam, we've come up with this, again, they have clever skills of layout and illustration and printing that I don't have. So I'm writing all the words for these things, and Adam's printing them and Martha's illustrating them most beautifully. And so this is called Stories from the Last Homely House Kitchen. So a bit more writing, and I'm really enjoying them. So those are over there on Patreon. And I always leave the link in the description below for you to have a look at there. So, yeah. And then one more thing that I'll talk about on Patreon is there's another reward that is access to all posts. And I looked on there the other day, and Patreon told me there are over 400 posts on Patreon that you can have access to. I had no idea we'd done so many. Some of them are videos, most of them. And some of them are chats and making and stories. I like to read on out loud on Patreon. And so there's those. There's always going to be those available to everyone. There's the Advent videos that I made here on the channel. I did a parallel Advent reading over on Patreon, and that is available to everyone from $1 up. So that was like my Christmas present to all my patrons. So that one. But then I'll just tell you again about the $5 reward, because that'll be coming up soon. Last summer, I'm not drawing lines, am I? Draw lines, Kate, draw lines. Last summer, I did a live stream sitting right in this spot here. And it was a little bit stressful, guys, I have to say. I'd never done anything like that before. And I did it. And actually, when I look back on my videos, it's one of the ones that's got the most views. So people have looked at it and like it. But the doing of it was not, it was a bit stressful. What you have to do when you do a live stream, because there's always people on there who, want to sort of, there's always just one or two people who want to spoil it for everyone else, don't they? So there's always someone who's going to do something, make a rude comment or be negative or whatever. So you have to appoint moderators because I can't be on top of that while I'm doing the stream. So I appointed moderators to moderate that. Just out of interest, I was encouraged to do a live stream because of my favourite YouTube channel, which is Hercules Candy. I'll leave a link to them below. If you don't know them, you're in for a treat, because they're such a lovely bunch of people who make candy, so what's not to like? But Craig will do a live stream maybe once a month or so, and I'm a moderator on there, along with a few other people who watch here. And so they get far more comments than I'll ever get piling in. There's always somebody who wants to draw attention to themselves. So there's a few people who are appointed as moderators who can mute people or delete their comment or boot them off entirely. So my thinking is that if I was to do another live stream, and I would like to, then actually I would do it over on Patreon, where it's everyone there wants to be there. Everyone there is there because they've decided to be there. So that on the end of every month, and I haven't decided exactly which day, I'm going to do a Patreon live stream with questions submitted the week before, because that's how I did it last time. I'll put a post up and I'll say, leave your questions here. I'll do the live stream and I won't have to appoint any moderators, and it won't be stressful. I think it'll be quite relaxed. So I'm going to try and find a time that will fit with people's time zones, and I'm going to do a live stream. I'll tell you now, I think I'll just look at the date. I think because of stuff that's happening at the end of the month, I've got a feeling it's going to be, here we are on the 19th today. I think it's going to be the 25th, which is a Saturday. Might not work for everyone. I think it is. I haven't quite decided. I'll have to decide soon though, because that's less than a week away, isn't it? Yeah, okay. I'm glad I looked at that. Okay, so that'll be that. And then you can sort of ask Kate anything kind of session where, you know, you can ask me anything you like. And I'll do my best to answer it. So that'll be that. That'll be good. So there you go. There's Patreon for you. And then over in the shop, we might as well carry on with the advert. The January sale, there are no lavender bags left now. So they were all sold at a reduced price. There are a few packs of greetings cards that are reduced. I think it works out if you buy 6, you get 2 for free. So that's a pretty good deal, I think. And then the calendar, because we're now halfway through January, is definitely there on a reduction, because there's, what are there? Just a few copies of that left now. So that's going on in the shop. And then also, one more thing in the shop. Somebody sent me an email and said, would I ever make baby quilts? And then I realised I've actually got some baby quilts upstairs in the cupboard, and I'd forgotten all about them. A few years ago now, I did an exhibition with my friend who's going to be Kate's mate in February, heads up. And I made all manner of things for that. And the few things that were unsold at the end of it included 2 cot quilts. And so I've just listed those in the shop just yesterday. There's just 2. They're Liberty fabric with silk wadding. So they are very luxurious. And that's not hard to wash. You don't have to worry about washing it. I mean, I wouldn't put it on a hot wash with your towels, but you can put it on a very gentle hand wash cycle in your washing machine, but don't put it in your tumble dryer. Tumble dryers, you know, hang them up on the line outside, or hang them up over your clothes dryer above your wood burning stove, because you've all got those, haven't you? Yeah. Right, I'm just going to go over and get my porridge. Just 1 minute. Well, that was one very tasty bowl of porridge. Raspberries were just perfect. So the quilts I was just talking about, I've got them right here. They're covered over so that the cats can't sleep on them, because I'm not washing these again. So this is, they're blue Liberty quilts. This one's all nicely tied up. But I'll open this one up and show you. So they're quite a decent sized cot quilt. And 2 blue ones is what I've got left. So it's got a blue Liberty on the back here. This one's a different fabric on the back. And then lots of different Liberty squares. What size are these squares? They are 4.5 inches finished. So they're 5-inch squares. And all hand quilted, stitched in the ditch here. With all different colours of orthil. I think they're all different colours, yeah. So those are in the shop now anyway, because that lady emailed me to remind me that I had them. That was good. But as for the shop, I'll just cover these back over again so that we don't get anybody sleeping on top of them. So January is the sale, but then next month, I haven't had a thought about what to put in the shop yet, but I'd like to make some new things. What would you like to see in the shop, particularly? I'll give you a heads up right now. It's a little bit too cold to go to my pottery studio. So the ceramic stuff that's coming, and there will be some, it'll probably be a bit later in the year, in the spring, when things have warmed up there a bit. It's cold, and yes, I can wrap up against the cold, but it means the clay is really hard and cold, and it takes it a while to get to the point where I can work it. So yeah, I'll be doing stuff with clay, but probably not for a little while, because you know I've stopped going to my course in Newcastle, which is a shame because I do miss it, but I don't miss the very long drive there and back in the winter, you know, leaving in the dark. I don't like driving anyway, so not driving is quite nice, so that's good. Yeah, so what am I going to put in the shop? Don't know. Haven't really given it I have given it some thought, but I haven't come up with anything. So I don't know, what would you like me to put in the shop? Quite happy to take suggestions, reasonable suggestions. I'm not putting Norma in the shop, just so as you know. There are people who have asked. It's not going to happen. There are times when I would consider it. She's got her back to me now. I don't know what that's about. I've done all the lines now. I've pinned everything up here. So what I'm going to do now is have a bit of fun selecting a big square and 4 little squares and matching them up so that there's a lovely distribution of colour with help. So I'm going to get the square, which is 7 1/4 inches, some pins, and I'll choose a set of 4 squares that will go with this. How do they look? Yep, they're fine. Now how this works then, and as I say, I'm not going to really offer this as a tutorial, but I'm just going to put 2 squares like that. And then the other 2 squares that go with it like that. Then I'm going to make a stack of these and put them next to my sewing machine so that I can just whiz through them all chain piecing style. What about you? How does that work? Yeah, that works fine. If I've done this properly, then those lines should line up. And they kind of do. Taken everything off the board and put it down here because I have an ambition today to pin all of these together so that I can, here's a pile I've just done here, so that I can put them next to the sewing machine with a cover on so that cats won't sleep on them. But as you can see, it's almost impossible to keep cats off what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to keep going until I've paired them up. So how I'm pairing them up is I'm just picking the first 2 that come to hand, and if it works straight away, great. But if it doesn't, And I'll make a quick decision about that, whether it works or not, because all of these fabrics are going to hang together in the same quilt. So they're all here and they're all going to be together. But the decision I'm making about how to pair these up now is quite intuitive. If the first one really doesn't work, I'll try another and another, and until I've got something I like. But I'm not going to agonize over it too much. So like that one works well with that. So without worrying about it too much, I'm just going to pin it up, because all of these guys are going to hang together in the same place soon. You're doing that thing again where I can't pin. Next stop then here is sewing. So once I've done all of this, I'll bring you back. I've got this many now, and that's maybe half of them, and I'll bring you back at the end and show you what they look like when they're all sewn together.